see what I see. So for folks that missed that, you didn't really miss anything too spectacular. All I did was go into the RDRS, log in, type in my WebPass email, and type in my password. And then, as I just alluded to, now here's the home page for the RDRS system. So for the next, an hour and a half or so, we're going to be looking at the data system from different perspectives, depending on and the various scenarios. But looks like we still have a couple of minutes before we set that off. So why don't we go ahead and take some questions if folks have them from the online, possibly.
So far it's been technical questions.
Oh, okay. Mostly technical questions related to not being able to hear me or whatever. So apologies for that. I think if you haven't, yeah, so folks are calling in, I guess. So great. Let's just roll on and start with scenario one. So scenario one is going to be for a food waste self-hauler. How would a food waste self-hauler register in the RDRS system? So, basically you would click that plus button. It comes up with this organization/site create. This is where you type in the required information to get into the system. So food waste self-haulers who haul their own food waste in excess or of the de minimis tonnage threshold per quarter would need to register and report in the RDRS system. I've already outlined some of the requirements in the previous webinar. So if you're still confused about your potential obligations, this goes for any reporting entity type. Please do review that RDRS web page, and please contact us if you have any additional questions. There's a tool that on the web page that will help you ascertain what your reporting obligations might look like. If you call, it will likely ask you a series, the same questions. So it would help a lot if you would take a look through that tool if you're not sure what your reporting obligations are. Also look at some of the past workshops. But anyway, assuming you do know that you do have to register, let's just come up with a hypothetical example, shall we? So let's imagine we have, for instance, a large rural concessionaire, like a resort or something. They self-haul their own food waste to composting, to in-vessel digestion, and self-haul solid waste to the landfill. They're very remote, so they don't have any trash service, and they do it all themselves. This is just a hypothetical, and all of the scenarios that I'll be going through are hypothetical. So please don't think that there's any connection to reality with any of these examples I'm about to give. So assuming, let's say it's a ski resort, or we'll call it Trashy Pines Ski Resort. So that would be the physical site name, the physical site that it's located on. That would be the name of it. So you're required to enter certain fields. Those are denoted by the asterisk, and you can also click these helpful question mark buttons. Those question marks provide an exhaustive description of exactly what you have to enter into the respective form field. So before you send an email, please take a look at what that question mark is asking you, and see if that makes sense. And if it doesn't, that's when you would want to get in touch with us for clarification. Okay, so type in a phone number, basically area code, and phone number. So we'll just do sort of a fake one for now. Let's see. Let's just say admin@trashypines.net. So website and all of that, these form fields aren't specifically required. So, you can, if you want to read about those more in detail, we have a PDF on the website that explains exactly what you would want to type in here, and you can also click those helpful question marks, and that'll tell you, exactly what you would want to put in there if you so desire. I mean, these fields are optional, but it would be a big help if you would input as much information as you could. Makes our lives easier as a department. Okay, so scrolling down a bit, we have physical address. Country, you would indicate United States. Physical address, we'll just make one up for these purposes. So 250 Park Road. Now city, town, place. Currently, what it does is try to autofill based on the incorporated cities in California. However, if your address is not an incorporated city, you can, for instance, East Pasadena. That's a part of unincorporated LA County, believe it or not. And so you can simply ignore its suggestions and input your own information in there. And we're in an enhancement of this module, we're going to be putting in the unincorporated places as well. And rest assured that we will be matching this up to the solid waste jurisdiction for host assigned waste purposes. So it's important to be, as explicit as possible in terms of putting your physical address. It should be the actual physical site location as best you can in these form fields. And of course, please feel free to reach out if you have any questions or concerns related to, exactly what you would want to put in here. Postal code has to be a valid 5-digit postal code. I'm just going to use that one for now because that's where we're located. Mailing address. So this is where you would receive mail, clearly. We're going to just check same as physical address just for our purposes today. But in any case, that's the place, again, where you would receive your mail. That's a requirement in the regulations that you tell us that. Okay, organization/site primary contact. So the person initially creating the registration profile, it's, I believe it is, yes, it is assigned, you have to put yourself in as the primary contact when you initially register. However, you can change that after you've created the profile. But for right now, it's going to hold your WebPass information in these here form fields. So you would simply be required, if you want to type in your title, please go right ahead. Phone number is a requirement for the organization/site's primary contact, and that is laid out in the regulations. So yeah, again, valid 10-digit phone number with the area code. Okay, now here's where you would add all of your reporting entities on a site, except for any dependent sub-activities, recycling, composting facilities. We'll be talking about that a little bit later. But in the case of food waste self-hauler, it's very straightforward. You basically you only have one reporting entity, which is, again, the food waste self-hauler. So you would click Add Reporting Entity. Sorry, I got a little ahead of myself, my own narration. You would click Food Waste Self-Hauler under Reporting Entity Activity to indicate that's what you do. Okay. You will type in the activity name. So, for instance, let's just say that this is the cafeteria at the ski resort. If that's how if that's how you would like your hauling activities to be known, you could type that in, concessionaire. Let's just go with that for now. If there's a DBA name associated with that particular activity, you can indicate that, EPA ID or Swiss number. Of course, those two wouldn't apply because we're only a food waste self-hauler. We're not a facility, so no need to. You can leave those form fields blank. So click Save, and now we've loaded the food waste self-hauler reporting entity activity into our organization/site of the Trashy Pine Ski Resort. So essentially, all that's left to do now, we've filled out essentially pretty much everything, and the only thing that's left to do is designate the person who has signature authority who submits the report under penalty of perjury pursuant to the regulations. We're going to go ahead and assume that's us, and in the case of food waste self-hauler, it most likely will be the same person who is creating the web pass and is doing the registration because it's a self-hauler. So that's me, Steven Sander, and we'll go ahead and try to submit. Oh, we'll also need to enter a phone number here. So that's an important thing to point out, is that if you hadn't entered the phone number up here like I should have, it won't populate down here either. So my bad on that one. And since we checked the box before we updated that form field, we'll need to just double click that and load the information from here back into here. So that probably would have thrown me an error had I tried to hit save at that point and create. So I think everything is filled out correctly, and we'll go ahead and try the registration now. All right. So here's the deal, folks, and this probably won't happen, but I tried to do this last night, this exact same name, Trashy Pines, and so what happened is, since that profile already exists, it'll ask you, do you want to be a part of that organization? And so it'll probably end up sending me an email. That I in fact registered that same site. So whomever basically created that registration profile first is going to send them an email and say, organization site already exists, and do you want to associate this new person who's trying to create the duplicate registration? So in that way, we've tried to prevent duplicates in that regard. So we're going to actually just go ahead and cancel out of that. But as of right now, I believe it created the registration profile anyway. for this new site. So we're going to have to take a look at that. Let's take any questions at this point, if we have any specifically related to the food waste self-hauler registration, if there are any. If not, I'll press ahead with another scenario. So there was a question from the online. Someone asked, I have 6 facilities. Do I have to register each of them? My answer to that is it depends on what the facility is doing and if it meets or exceeds the de minimis tonnage threshold. It wouldn't be the case that you aggregate the reporting across multiple sites. So if any one of those individual sites again met or exceeded that de minimis tonnage threshold, that would trigger the need to register and report for that particular site. So it's in a site-by-site basis. If they, as a single site, do more than the threshold, that's what triggers the reporting. It wouldn't be the case that you aggregate across multiple sites. So, if each of the sites did more than 100 tons of reportable materials, and that was the tonnage threshold, and they were doing qualified activities under this article, they would be required to potentially register up to 6 different sites.
I think just to add one thing, for that example also, if you're meeting a WebPass profile, then no, you can access all your facilities via a single WebPass profile.
Yes, so you can create 6 organizations/sites and manage it under one WebPass. So important to clarify. Thanks, Dan. Do we have anything else?
Oh, yeah, we have plenty. Another question, and this is pretty common. If we are already in DORIS, will we need to create a new profile for this?
Yes, we've been getting this particular question quite a bit. So the answer is yes, if your facility or operation meets or exceeds the de minimis tonnage threshold for the combination of material categories you handle, for instance, metals, glass, plastic. If you handle in excess of 100 tons of that, meaning you send out over 100 tons or more of those materials per quarter, you would need to register and report additionally in RDRS, as well as your current obligations under DORIS. RDRS doesn't change any of your current obligations with regard to DORIS. So it wouldn't be the case that you would stop reporting in DORIS and begin reporting in this one. The two don't speak to each other. So in some cases that may be required. Yes, it will.
Yeah, and once again, if you have a WebPass to access DORIS, you don't need to create a new WebPass. You can use your existing WebPass. DORIS and RDRS are 2 completely separate databases, but you're using the same login credentials to access them.
Okay, yeah.